Hello, magnificent human beings. My name is Landon Slaughter, and here we do yoga, we talk about life, and we focus on personal growth. This class right here is a educational piece that is all about Gomukhasana, that is Cowface Pose. So if you are interested in learning more about Cowface and some cool transitions and kind of what you should be feeling where, all those things, this is the class for you. Please go ahead, roll out your mat, and I will roll the intro screen. Thank you again for being here. Let's dive into looking at Cowface Gomukhasana. I love this pose because it's not one that gets talked about too often, and I personally don't find it in a lot of yoga classes out there. Now, granted, maybe it's in 20 or 30%, but in the majority of classes, I really don't do cow face too often. Love to teach this pose, and I love doing this posture, so I definitely try to incorporate it into more of my classes. You may need a block, you may not, but let's get into looking at cow face. So oftentimes we start in tabletop, and then we can cross our legs over, and then also you can do the slouch thing where you bring another leg over. There's so many ways to get into this posture. We're going to examine a couple. So if you are here simply in your thunderbolt pose, and you may begin by simply slouching over to one side. So you just slouch on over, let's say, to your right side. And then if you notice your bottom leg down here, if you're slouching onto your right side, then it's your right leg in this case, is kind of already in a pretty good position. And then you can bring this left leg all the way around and bring it on back. So then this puts you decently here into your cow face. You do need to move this bottom foot out of the way a little bit because you need to kind of sit equally on your sits bones as best as you can. So that's the really difficult part about this pose, is actually sitting equally on those sits bones, because you have to have really kind of open hips and hamstrings and everything. If your butt is elevated just a little bit, on one side, then that's fine. And this will kind of be, the base of your pose. So let's come out of this. So again, that's one way to come into this posture. And just to recap, you slouch on over, and then you take your top leg and you wrap it on around, trying to get your knees to stack on top of one another as best as they can. And that way of getting into the pose is okay. I generally prefer to actually do this from tabletop because it kind of sets things up a little bit better. So in your tabletop, you take your, whichever leg you want, right? But let's take our left leg and bring it up and around, wrapping it around that right. So crossing your legs, it's almost kind of like how you get set up for eagle, right? But we're really bringing those knees close together. And that's kind of one of the secrets of Gomukhasana, is getting your knees really close together. So once your knees are as close together as you can get them, separate your feet behind you, and then you're gonna have to use some of your upper body strength here, walking things on back, slowly sitting on down. And we make the mistake of sitting on this ankle, this foot sometimes. So don't go there, rather sitting all the way down on your butt. And I really like this way of getting into the pose because I just feel it gets things set up much better overall. And this pose feels weird, right? Because we never really do this in our day-to-day lives. This isn't a normal way in which we sit. But nonetheless, finding yourself here in your cow face, keep those ankles nice and flexed. Not too much, just, a little bit, because flexing your ankles here at 90-degree angle will help to protect your knee joints. And if you cannot get your butt down to the ground, maybe try elevating things onto a block. And this might even set you up even better, because then you can sit equally on those sits bones. And this could change the posture dramatically for you. So, this pose is kind of a never-ending journey, because you feel it in one part, one day, and then 3 or 4 weeks later, you feel it in another part of your body. So you might be feeling this all the way up in your low back, through your glutes, through your hips, even around your IT bands is definitely possible, and into kind of the maybe even piriformis type area there in your butt. I mean, it really gets into lots of different places. So if you are nice and set up, if you're on the block, wherever you may be, then more of the magic starts to happen as you hinge forward at your hips. Now, our arms, we're just leaving them out of this for now. We'll get to what you do with your arms in a second. But it's really important to focus on, what you're feeling as you come down. And breath is the biggest thing in this pose. Inhale, lengthen your spine. Exhale, slowly hinge at your hips. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, hinge. And your goal is that one day your forehead will eventually touch the mat. It is possible. I've definitely seen it before. I have not experienced this phenomenon, but it is definitely a thing. So wherever you are in your cow face, let's just stay here and examine our arms and what they should be doing. So it's kind of an opposite thing, where if your left knee is on top, then you want your right elbow to come up. And I encourage people first to just find that tricep stretch by, holding this elbow up here and gently tugging, not a lot, just so you feel the gentle stretch in that tricep. And then the same thing, inhale, lengthen your spine, exhale, hinge, inhale, lengthen, exhale, hinge, coming on down. The other way is to bind by taking that hand all the way into the middle of that back and then grabbing, interlacing, locking those fingers in so that you come down. Now, this is for people who have very open shoulders. I do not recommend that bind if you feel real weirdness or awkwardness there in your shoulders, because as you hinge down, you actually start to kind of tax that area, and unless they're in really good proper alignment, nice and back like they should be, and your collarbone is open, as well, that whole area, then you're probably going to start to feel some discomfort in your shoulders here. So if you can, great, and if you cannot, that's fine too. Just back off. So wherever you are, remember, it's the opposite. So left knee up, right elbow up. Then coming on down. And there is your Cowface pose. Coming out of this posture, walking things forward. And it always feels good for me to kind of kick and alternate my legs on back to bring some of that blood flow back in. Thank you so much for being here. We still have one more class to go. Friday's class. It is a full class, all that revolves around Gomukhasana, Cowface Pose. So once more, thank all of you so much for being here. From my heart to all of yours. Namaste.